What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. I'm one of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kevin Valentin.
I'm the other host of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro. Kev, I gotta say, I know it's been a couple days since we recorded, but man, there have been some developments. There's been some stories that have taken place since we last recorded.
Man, you're not kidding, man. Some life altering news, and I mean, obviously, first and foremost, the Damar Hamlin situation with that whole Monday night game ordeal, how that's transpired with NFL players, former players. I mean, sportscasters. I mean, it's incredible the impact that one tragic play ended up having throughout the entire community in terms of the NFL and fandom and what that has meant to so many people across the globe. So it's just like that was scary. And I know we'll get into that later, but that was one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but it is kind of crazy how that one play is going to have ramifications. Not only for this week, but potentially for the playoffs, since that Bills and Bengals game is no longer going to be played. So it's just going to be interesting to see how really the last week of the NFL season goes. But I will say, before we really kind of dive into it, I always say this at the beginning. Kev, how you doing, my guy? I know that was kind of a
I'm good,
flip, but
man.
I
No, no,
had
no.
I had to I had to ask though.
I'm good. I'm tired. Got a little bit of a headache. It's been a busy day at work, even though we had a short week. There's a lot of stuff going on at work. A lot of stuff going on in the house. Excuse the tape in the background. I'm not being fumigated or nothing. Ordered a bookshelf. Did some measurements with my pops. I just want to keep that there so when the bookcase gets here, I can build it and put it in the spot and might hang some shelves and stuff like that. So, um, just thought I'd clarify there. But I mean, how you doing, bro? You're the one that's got to go out there and drive all day. I still can't imagine.
Oh, I mean it's good. I had somewhat of a weird situation take place though. So I had a route in Plant City, and I'm not going to say where specifically in
Oh,
Plant City.
is this that place that we talk about every time that I laugh?
No, 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 no. This is a different place.
Okay.
I was delivering a package to this guy, and this guy's sitting on his porch bench, and he asked me something simple like, how's it going? It's like good. It's like they got a package for you guys, and he's like, all right, cool. You could just put it on the table over by the front door, and it's kind of funny because as he's saying that in real time, I'm looking at the package, making sure I got the address right, making sure I got the name right, and I look to where he's sitting on his porch bench. My guy, this dude was naked. Like he was literally rocking out with his cock out. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I kept my cool the entire time, like on the surface, but like internally, I'm like, I gotta dip, I gotta go.
So
So
this was that place that we talked about. Is it
this is a
that?
different place, different place.
Oh, it's a different place than
This
that
is,
place. So just multiple people be out here naked.
well, well, let's just say this: in Plant City, they don't have nudist communities. In Lutz, they do, but not in Plant City. But this was just a one-off. But at least with like nudist communities, I have a little bit of an expectation of knowing what I'm getting into prior to actually going into the neighborhood. This was completely unexpected. So yeah, it was that kind of day, but it is what it is. We move
We move
on.
on.
Slightly traumatized, but it is what it is. I mean, it might be something to ask a therapist one day. They look back on where things may have went downhill for me. It was one Plant City stop.
Hey,
So
listen. I'm here. I'm here to vent too. As long as you don't
uh,
ask me to go with you, I'm here
outside
for
of
you.
that, it was a typical day. So nothing crazy, but just that one off is just what are you gonna do? Just dude's just chilling.
There's nothing you can do. I mean, honestly,
It's his house.
if I
If he
was
wants to
there,
do,
if I'm there, right? If I'm in that situation, this is me. You know how I am. I'd probably look. I'd be like, you want to put some fucking pants,
I have to keep
bro?
professional. I have to
I'm
keep
telling,
professional.
I know. I'd probably get fired, but I just don't have a filter. It'd be like, are you serious, dude?
Yeah.
Like, you
Well,
see me approaching the house. Can you at least cover yourself?
internally, I was saying it's like I can't believe I got to deal with this. Like, really, I got to deal with this all over again. I thought we were
Yeah.
past this,
No.
but no,
No. No.
no.
No.
So, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
It is
But
his house. If he wants to do that, fine. I
I
guess to each
mean,
his own, but
guess.
man, I mean, at least give me a heads up, like something. No, he's
Yeah,
just
right. Stick your hand up in the air and be like, "Yo, I'm naked." Have a sign in front like "We welcome nudists" or something, so I can prepare for it and be like, "All right, well, he's probably naked."
I know, it's just, I honestly I'm just looking in his general direction just to kind of acknowledge like his presence. Because it'd be kind of like just disrespectful if I just like drop the package off and I'm talking to him and there's no like I don't even look towards his direction. I didn't think I was gonna see, family jewels and whatever when I just simply look over in his general direction. I was just like,
That's too
I,
much.
I gotta deal with this.
And
I
yeah,
can't
no,
believe I gotta deal with that.
I'm over it. We're gonna go right into the agenda because I want to forget about this, and I'm sure you do
Yeah.
too. We
We
got
we
plenty of
we
games to talk about.
we got a packed agenda, my guy.
Oh yeah,
Floor's yours, bro.
Week 18 in the NFL. For a lot of people, it's win and get in or lose and go home. So we have plenty of matchups to discuss. First and foremost, we're going to go right into the AFC East, right into Kyle's team. The Patriots win, and I think something else, like the Dolphins
Nope.
have to lose,
Mm-mm.
or
If
it's
we win,
winning
we're
in.
in. Yeah, if we win, we're in.
So even easier. So the Patriots got to beat Buffalo in Buffalo. Obviously, Buffalo's going through that entire situation with Damar. We do not know how their emotions are going to be. They could be heightened. They could be distracted. It could be a number of different things. But again, if Buffalo wins, Kansas City loses, Buffalo gets the 1 seed. Actually, not even. Even if they both win, they're the same record. Buffalo gets in because Buffalo has that tiebreaker over KC.
Yeah, I think if Buffalo were to win, I think they would still, I think they would potentially have home field advantage, but
I
based
think
on the
we'd have to
fact
go
that,
to division record, right?
well, it is kind of weird how that whole Bills and Bengals situation is going to work out.
Yeah.
I, 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 I could look it up in a minute. I know the NFL put out a statement and they listed the different scenarios for it, but whenever like you're diving into your analysis, I'll look at the post real quick
Yeah.
and then we'll talk about it on air. We'll just do
Yeah,
that. We'll do it
we'll
that way.
go into it live, but that's going to be one of the games. Second is going to be the battle for the AFC South, the Titans versus the Jaguars. Surprisingly, the Jags have found a way to turn it around with Doug Peterson leading the way. Trevor Lawrence has had an incredible second half of the year, and obviously the Titans are faltering with all the injuries that they've had over the course of the last few weeks. However, Derrick Henry has been activated from the injury list, so he will be a full go, as well as a number of other Titans players. So we will see how the Titans can fare with the majority of their lineup coming back minus Ryan Tannehill. So that's going to be a game to monitor and see who gets the 4 seed in the AFC. Then you have another key game, the Ravens and the Bengals. This is another situation that is going to be changed due to the fact that this Bengals and Bills game was canceled. So this is going to be more so a game of who has home field advantage between the matchup that is looming right now. Because if I'm not mistaken, the Ravens have the 6 seed and the
Well,
Bengals have the 3 seed.
yeah, because the Bengals they're the number one team in the AFC North. They already clinched the AFC North. I think based off of what happened with them canceling the game, since the Bengals didn't lose that game against the Bills, they automatically won the AFC North based off of that result of just the game getting canceled. It's weird just based on the circumstances, but they
Yeah.
are AFC North champs. So
So
yeah,
the winner of this game, if Baltimore wins, if I'm not mistaken, they will flip a coin to see who has home field advantage for that inevitable playoff matchup between the two teams. If the Bengals win, obviously that's different. I think the Ravens fall. No, the Ravens can't even fall to the 7. Jesus Christ, you are not lying. This is complicated as hell. One
yeah,
long agenda.
yeah. It's like I said. Whenever you're going
We'll get
over,
into further detail.
yeah, well, I'll look it over. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, and then the next game is once again who is going to be coming out on top for the final wild card seed. The Steelers are facing the Browns in an AFC North showdown. Steelers got to win and a couple of other factors once again to get into the playoffs. And Kyle has already elaborated that we're going to
I,
get into some more research.
I think with that one's a little bit more simple. I think the Patriots have to lose and the Dolphins
Dolphins
have
got
to
to
lose.
lose, and then the Steelers get in
Yep. But the
if they
Steelers
win.
obviously would have to win. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
one's a little bit more simple.
yeah, and then lastly, game of the week,
That big game.
NFC North showdown. The Packers and Lions game. It was flexed to the Sunday night game. Thank God the NFL got it right. Man, this is going to be crazy. Dude, the
Hmm.
Packers found a way to turn the season around. The Lions have been one of the hottest teams in football over the last 2 months, aside from their loss against the Panthers. dude, both teams are fighting for this wild card spot. Both teams want to be in. Obviously, if the Packers win, they're in. If the Lions win, I think they need another loss from somebody else as well. Again,
I think it's
more
Seattle.
information will be.
I think it's
So
Seattle.
we will see what happens, but that game's going to be crazy because there's a lot of implications on whether who wins and loses. So, like we said, packed agenda, a lot of stuff to go over in more detail, a lot of confusing win get in scenarios that Kyle is going to look up on the other side. But first, before we even get in there, let's get into the first topic of conversation. Damar Hamlin. Thank God he's got neurological signs. He's active. He's moving around in terms of like, visibly his eyes are open. He's communicating with the doctors. I think he's writing things down, which is how he's able to vocalize because he's got a tube in his mouth, right? Because he's not breathing on his own. If I'm not mistaken, that was the update we received.
Yeah, I think he's still on a ventilator to a certain extent. I don't know what the actual percentage is. All I know is that since Monday he was 100% on oxygen via a ventilator. Then it was 50%, and then I'm assuming since he's made some pretty significant progress, the amount of oxygen that he's taking from the ventilator is continuing to decrease. I don't know to what extent, but
Right.
now the fact that he's actually alert and he's awake and he's
To an extent,
responsive,
coherent as well.
he's
Yeah.
responsive, and he has a movement in his extremities as well, which is huge.
So, I mean, we're just going to talk about this briefly. We know that this happened on Monday. I mean, Kyle and I were texting each other that entire process, like shook, just like the rest of the world was. So let's
Mhm.
just talk about it for the sake of thank God he's okay. Let's clarify with when it happened. And we're talking about resuscitation and CPR and the AED having to be used. And for those of you that are unaware, it's what doctors use clear, like that's the
It's a,
one that's
yeah,
that's the portable one,
it's a
the
defibrillator.
defibrillator.
Yep.
So the fact that that had to happen on a football field in the professional setting, granted, high school, middle school, Pop Warner, whatever it is, the fact that that had to be utilized to save someone's life is probably the most eye-opening experience I've ever seen on television because we know that this isn't the WWE, this is something like that. This is real.
Mhm.
Kyle, I gotta ask you, as somebody who played the game for a multitude of years, who's put his body out there, what did this hit do to you psychologically? Did it shake you more because you felt like you've seen this hit, you've experienced a kind of hit like this? Like, did it scare you a little bit more? Like, just talk about your feelings if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the hit itself that Damar took from T. Higgins, it was a pretty simple hit. I mean, T was running with the ball and lowered his shoulder into Damar's chest. And I mean, to be honest, Kev, I mean, I've taken similar type of hits. Granted, I never played professionally. Like, I never got anywhere close to that. I mean, the farthest I got was high school football. But yeah, there were times where I took similar shots. It didn't have the outcome that Damar unfortunately went through. And when I look back at that play specifically, I just don't think Damar was expecting T. Higgins to hit him as high as he did. I think, I think as a defensive player, just with him in that moment, I think he was thinking that T may have was going to hit him a little bit lower, maybe like the lower rib cage area, maybe around the stomach, just where T was at that moment in the play. But I think he got surprised by where T hit him in the chest. And then, I mean, the play was over. I mean, he gets T gets tackled by Damar, and then Damar pops right back up on his feet, and then obviously everybody knows that he collapsed within a half a second to a second later, and then there's a 30-minute delay where essentially Damar was not only unconscious, I mean his heart stopped. They had to resuscitate him on the field, and like Kevin had already said, they had to use a defibrillator to get his heart back into rhythm, and essentially what I think a lot of people were saying about the hit that he took was that it knocked his heart out of rhythm. And depending on how much trauma that you take in the chest, that's blunt force trauma, yeah, it could stop your heart. And that's exactly what happened. He went into cardiac arrest and he collapsed on the field. It was just absolutely insane based off of the fact that, to be honest with you, Kev, I've never really seen anything like that before. The thing that kind of got me that was a little bit weird or a little bit scary, you could say, was the fact that it was just a typical hit. I mean, Kev, these guys are flying around at, 15, 20 miles an hour, and there have been worse hits than what we saw Damar take from T. Higgins, where, you don't have this type of outcome. And, maybe that's kind of the scarier part is that, it was the type of hit that he took and it had this unbelievable and catastrophic result. It's just, it could shake you a little bit. And I think everybody was shaken up, based off of what happened. And fortunately, now that we're a couple of days removed from that Monday night game between the Bills and the Bengals, we can accurately say at this point, or we could definitively say that Damar is making tremendous strides in his recovery. I mean, it's one thing, to be able to be conscious and alert, but the fact that he's neurologically sound or he's functional in that regard, and he's moving his extremities around and he can respond just to simple requests or just simple communication elements. I mean, that's phenomenal. The fact that he's making these amount of strides within essentially a 72-hour window from that initial collapse that he suffered on the field on Monday night. And, I'm not even going to go anything into about what his football career is going to hold. I'm not really going to dive into that yet because as far as I'm concerned, that's not really what's important right now. The most important thing as far as I see is he is making tremendous strides in his recovery. And Kev, I have to kind of say that just before I wrap this up, the amount of respect and the amount of appreciation that I have for the medical staff of the Bills and the Bengals and the medical staff at the University of Cincinnati Hospital in Cincinnati, uh, I, it cannot be uh, understated. I mean, I, it's phenomenal what they've been able to do with Damar just based off of how they've been treating him uh, since the initial collapse that he suffered on the field and the subsequent care that he's gotten at the hospital over the last couple of days. Kev, I mean, the medical personnel on the field saved his life. There's no other way to put it. And when we look back at some of the reactions that we saw from the players on the Bills, I think that they were fully convinced that he died on the field. And technically, that actually did happen. When you get resuscitated, I mean, his heart stopped. So, technically, he did die, and then they brought him back, which is just, I mean, it's a miracle as far as I'm concerned that, not only were they able to bring him back and, within a couple of days, he's responsive and neurologically functional, which is just, it's amazing. It's the best case scenario, uh, coming into, well, it's going to be Friday, but by the end of the week compared to where we were at the beginning of the week, it's amazing as far as I've seen it. And I think, as we continue over the next couple days, obviously, we'll be getting more updates about Damar's status, and hopefully it's just one step in front of another, and he's making that progress to the point where, maybe he gets discharged from the hospital sooner rather than later, because I think a lot of people initially were thinking, man, this isn't looking good, just based off of what we saw initially within the first, 15, 30 minutes on the field in Cincinnati, because I think that there were a lot of people that legitimately thought that he was going to die on the football field. And honestly, I was probably one of those people included. So I just have to say, it's extremely impressive what Damar's been able to do in his recovery. I think a part of the fact that he is extremely athletic, he's in good shape, and he's young is probably a reason why that he's still neurologically functional, just because when you're out for that long, when you have no heartbeat, after a couple of minutes, you're going to suffer some extreme brain damage. And I think in this case, I think Damar averted that. And I think a part of it was obviously, I think his overall health, but it was the quick responsive nature from the medical personnel that saved his life. And then obviously the care that he's been receiving at the hospital has improved that as well. So, I mean, overall, to me, it's a miracle that he's, making these types of significant strides in his recovery. And hopefully, he just keeps improving day by day, and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. But I mean, to go from where we were on Monday to this point where you guys will be watching this on Friday, Damar is just, he's making he's making the strides that are being made, and it's just unbelievable. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm still keeping my thoughts out. I'm still checking the updates on Damar on a daily basis, and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. And you know, I think I think probably one of the last things that I'll say is just it's really I think rallied not only the Buffalo Bills but the NFL community to a larger extent as well, because I think millions of people are pulling for Damar based off what they saw on Monday night, and I think everybody is. I think now we're kind of getting to the point where we can take a sigh of relief collectively based on where we were on Monday, knowing that he's making these remarkable strides in his recovery. So it's incredible. And, like I said, it's just all the thanks in the world to the medical staff at the hospital and the medical personnel with the Bills and the Bengals. It, it's almost indescribable the amount of appreciation that I have to those individuals for essentially saving Damar's life. So, Kev, I'll let you take it from here.
I mean, I don't really have much else to say, honestly, aside from my own personal opinion of what I saw, how I feel. I mean, like Kyle said, shout out to the medical staff. They saved the young man's life. That's first and foremost. This is a game for entertainment, and at that point, I don't believe anybody was going to be entertained with anything but knowing and finding out if Damar was going to be okay. I'm actually happy the NFL called that game. I think that that was the right decision, again, in my personal opinion, because I believe that both teams were just too messed up, too distracted, too focused on, their brother's safety. And I mean, like, you saw Josh Allen crying, you saw multiple players tearing up on their knees, praying, circling at midfield to just, hold together and trying to will Damar, you know, back to good health with just prayer and their belief. And it was again, it was incredible to see how the league came together, but it was just, again, massively eye opening that people put their lives on the line to play this game for our benefit, in terms of for our eyes, for our fandom. Yes, for a paycheck, absolutely, but football's a game just like any other sport. And when someone's life is at a pass like this, and it's a crossroads of they could die, or they can never be the same again. And, obviously I will 110% take a life being saved and preserved as opposed to playing this game. You're not going to die if you don't play this again. You'll be fine. And I'm just thankful that he woke up, he's getting better. And again, like, for the league to prioritize his health and to cut that game. I mean, I believe Stephon Diggs was at the hospital like within an hour, maybe even a little bit more, right after the game was called. And that's just, you want to be by your brother's side. You want to be by your teammate's side. You want to be by your friend's side. And it's just super, super crazy to think that that happened on such a routine, what looked to be a routine hit. I mean, we've seen people get their heads knocked off. We've seen highlights of plays from the 70s and the 80s when there were no rough in the passer, when there were no dirty hits. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they were dirty, but I mean, like, they weren't deemed dirty. They were just football plays. And people get up and they're fine. And by fine, obviously, I know CTE is a thing and concussions and all these things. I'm talking, I've never seen a hit knock somebody out to the point where they're technically classified as dead and needed to be resuscitated. So, again, just praying for his health, his family's peace of mind. Of course, at the end of the day, everybody is also looking at T. Higgins. Can't blame the man. And when I say looking at him, I'm not saying looking to blame. It's just he's forever going to be attached to the situation because he's the one that made the contact with Damar. So, hopefully he has some mental relief now that his mom came out, and by his, I mean Damar's mom came out and made a statement, to leave T. Higgins alone, to not to blame him. This isn't his fault. There's nothing he could have done. And then, of course, for Josh Allen to take the podium today and also say the same thing, and multiple NFL players, there's not much you can do. You sign a contract to play a game. You take a risk every time you put the helmet and pads on, and this is unfortunately one of those risks. I think now that it's actually happened, it's going to bring some attention now to maybe altering some equipment, whether that is altering chest plates, whether that is making athletes wear an additional, maybe like a thicker version of those undergarment shirts that have those small cushion padding. I have no idea what the league is going to do, but again, just super happy Damar's doing okay. And I don't really want to harp on it anymore because the important part is he's healthy, or excuse me, getting healthier. And I don't want that to be lost in translation.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as like the padding that comes on the shoulder pads, like around the chest area, I mean, that's something that could probably be improved. But Kev, I think with Damar's situation, I think this was really truly an anomaly. Yeah, it's simply just because that we've seen plenty of hits like that that are just relatively routine. I mean, it wasn't like anything crazy. I mean, we've seen hits over what the last 10, 15 years where they look like legitimate car crashes. Guys get knocked out, but like they could get up and they can sometimes walk off the field. Granted, they're dazed and they're a little bit woozy, but this was a relatively routine play. And for it to have the result that it did, I think that's what threw everybody off. It was like that type of hit led to that type of result. It's just that's where I think like the shake, like confidence can get shaken, knowing that something like that can happen based off of just a relatively routine hit. And when it comes to T Higgins, I mean, there, T was just making a play.
Facts.
Like you can't blame T Higgins, and there was no dirty hit there. He was just trying to get extra yardage. Like T's
People
just
want to
doing his
spin
job.
the narrative, and it's
Like
ridiculous.
at that point, people are just trying to troll just to get on T's case. Like T was doing what he was supposed to do anyway. He was just trying to get extra yards. Like, and honestly, if anything, like if I had to assume, I don't think Damar's going to be mad about what T Higgins was trying to do. That was a relatively routine play. I mean, there was nothing out of the ordinary with that play. But yeah, I think the only thing maybe they might consider is just making a slight adjustment to the chest padding associated with the shoulder pads. Um, but I mean, outside of that, I can't really think of anything like there's like no rule changes I would put in place based off of this.
No, there's
It's
nothing
just
you can do there.
it was just a freak thing. It's just unfortunate that Damar had to go through it, and not only that, his whole team had to experience the looked like the actual real potential of him dying on the field from a relatively routine play. I think you know, like I kind of said a couple of minutes ago, I think, now that we're at the end of the week and we're getting those positive updates from his family and the medical personnel at that hospital, I think we can take a more collective sigh of relief knowing that he's progressing to the point where he's functional, he's moving his extremities. Like, those are the signs that you really want to see as he's making his recovery. And then if he just continues that path, it will get to a point where he's discharged from the hospital. And hopefully that's sooner rather than later. But, as far as I see it, he still has a little ways to go when it comes to his recovery. But, I mean, based on where we were at the earlier part of this week, I mean, it's remarkable. It damn near miraculous as far as I could say it. Because it did not look good Monday night for him.
No,
So,
no matter where you were watching from. But with uh, with all that being said, we do have to get to some topics, some games that are on the slate, like we had mentioned in the agenda. And coincidentally, one of those games happens to be the Bills game and the Patriots game. So, Kyle, with you being the native Patriot fan, this game's got a lot of stakes for you guys. Win, you're in. Going up against a juggernaut, they're at home. They have emotional backing them with everything that they've gone through with the week. So, I mean, Kyle, who do you have coming out of this game and why?
Kev, I got to go with the Bills on this one. And it's interesting that I'm taking this position. Honestly, I want the Bills to win this game. I know the Patriots are trying to fight for a playoff spot, and I know that I'm a Patriot fan here, but based on what this last couple days has been like for the Buffalo Bills, um, the amount of emotional backing that they have in this game, I think is going to be significant. Knowing that Damar Hamlin is improving day by day, making just remarkable strides in his recovery, based on what we saw Monday night against the Bengals, where he collapsed on the field. And I think with the Bills in particular, knowing that he's improving and he's fighting to eventually, hopefully, get discharged from the hospital, I think the Bills are going to get their mind right for this game, and I think that they're going to play balls to the wall for Damar in this one. I think that's pretty much all the motivation that they need. I think knowing that he's going to be all right, or that he's on the path to being all right, I think that they're going to be laser focused on this game. And honestly, Kev, I could see the Bills winning this one in an absolute runaway. Um, Obviously, we didn't get to see the Bills and the Bengals play out the entirety of the game based on what happened with Damar collapsing on the field. But it looked like the Bills definitely showed that they can be a solid team moving forward. Obviously, they're going to be a much different team now based off of what happened with Damar. But nonetheless, I think as far as their execution is concerned, I think they will be able to attack this Patriot defense, which when going up against top tier offenses, New England's defense has struggled. New England's defense has been up and down. The biggest thing with them is they've been able to get turnovers and then turn those turnovers into touchdowns immediately. But I think with this game in particular, I just don't believe that the Patriots are going to be in this game, knowing the circumstances surrounding the Bills right now. And I think with the Bills having, you know, knowing that Damar is going to be all right, I think that they're going to just go absolutely nuts in this game for him. They're going to play for him. And I think I don't think the Patriots are going to be ready for that. And, going into Buffalo, Buffalo's crowd is going to energize the Buffalo Bills, probably unlike we've ever seen before. I mean, Buffalo's fans go crazy regardless, whoever the Bills are going up against. But the fans are going to be ready to go for that game against the Patriots. And honestly, I see the Bills running away with this game. I don't see the Patriots being competitive in this one, knowing what the Bills have gone through and knowing that they're going to be focused for this game. I think this game's going to just be. I think it's going to be just an absolute runaway for the Patriots here. I don't see the Patriots being competitive in this one. So if I had to put a score on this one, I think the Bills win this one by the score of like 31-17. And when it comes to the Bills, I think having this win and finally kind of getting back into a rhythm, I think it's going to set them up pretty nicely for a pretty solid playoff run here. And like I said, I think they have all the motivation with Damar behind them, and I think they're going to show it out against the Patriots this upcoming weekend.
I mean, yeah, I don't really have much to follow up at that. I think that the emotional backing, I think that with all of that weighing on their shoulders, the support from the entire city of Buffalo, from what feels to be the entire country backing this Damar Hamlin situation, I think the Bills are going to have a lot of fuel in the tank. Obviously, it's not necessarily a week off, but they didn't have the game on Monday. They suited up, they played for a little bit, and then of course the rest of the week was probably the team just focused on really making sure that their teammate was okay. They probably had some walkthroughs and some practice, but they are rested. They're ready to go. They know they need to win this game to solidify or at least compete for that one seed, however that outlook may be. And the Patriots offense struggling the way that it has been over the course of the last few months, I don't necessarily think that they have anything to compete with Buffalo. I don't think it's going to be close. I agree with Kyle. It's going to probably be somewhere in the lines of 30s, somewhere in the 30s to the high teens, low 20s, and that's just assuming that New England's defense gets a stop or two, and Josh Allen's been not careless with the football, but hasn't had the best chances. I can't even say chances. He hasn't necessarily been safe with the ball. He's taken a few gambles. He's lost a couple of fumbles. So if the Patriots defense can continue to be as good as they have been all season, I would assume that their defense gets a takeaway. Maybe they get a touchdown. Who knows? They've been getting a lot of pick sixes over the course of the last few weeks. So I'm not saying that they won't be able to make an impact, but it's going to be hard to stop a very motivated and driven Buffalo team. So I could not agree more. I think Buffalo takes this, and it's not close.
Yeah, it's just when it comes to the Patriots, I can't trust their play calling. Matt Patricia has just been shaky as the play caller the entire year. Mac Jones has been up and down the entire year, but I think that's really based on the consequences of the offensive play calling. It's just with New England, they've really just been hit or miss this year. They're basically going to finish at either a 9-8 record or an 8-9 record. Like you're basically talking about an average team uh, as far as the description goes with their record by the end of the year. But yeah, this is one of those games, Kev. Like just seeing what Buffalo's gone through the last couple days. I just really think that the city is going to rally around that team, and I I think those guys are going to just be inspired to play football unlike anything I've ever seen from that group. It's one thing to go into a football game as they typically have in the past, but knowing the circumstances behind this one, based off of what's been going on with Damar, those boys are going to be ready. They're going to be laser focused. And Kev, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if any team, if the Bills play lights out this upcoming weekend against the Patriots, to be quite honest with you, Kev, I don't know if there's any team that could beat the Bills this upcoming weekend. I don't think if the Bills, play balls to the wall and they just execute, no team is going to beat them this weekend. It wouldn't matter who it is. You could put the Eagles if they were fully healthy. You could put the Chiefs, the Cowboys. It doesn't matter. The Bills would beat everybody. And I think it just kind of goes to that. I think they're just going to be inspired to a level that, frankly, I don't think we've seen in quite some time. So yeah, I got the Bills in a mile in this one. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. But with that said, we are going to transition to a major divisional game that is going to take place this weekend. That's going to feature two AFC South teams. We've got the Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars going at it in Week 18. Just to give you guys a quick update of where both teams stand right now, we've got the Tennessee Titans that are sitting at a 7-9 record. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at an 8-8 record. Now, technically, as of right now, the Jaguars are in first place, but this is going to be the game that's going to decide the division. Whoever wins this game, Kev, they would get the 4 seed if I'm correct, right?
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't mean that either team is going to get a first round bye. They would be playing in the first week of the playoffs in the wild card round, but nonetheless, a major AFC South divisional game for both of these teams. It's going to decide the division as a whole. So, Kev, to get this one to you, we've got the Titans and the Jaguars, and this game is going to decide the AFC South, who's going to represent that division. Who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
I got Jacksonville. I mean, Ryan Tannehill's not there. They benched their rookie quarterback, Malik Willis. Joshua Dobbs is going to be starting. He's the third string quarterback. I don't know how anybody can have faith in that. Trevor Lawrence is not on a historic or MVP kind of run right now, but he is on a great run as of recently, putting his team in a position to win. The defense has been playing very well. The coaching staff is just looking absolutely incredible from last season to this season. I mean, from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson, it just goes to show the difference in coaching speaks volume to the roster that you also assimilate together. So this cohesive team, this young core has done very well. Travis Etienne's gotten it going. Obviously, Zay Jones had his big game a few weeks ago, but Evan Ingram has come out. Marvin Jones has been a good veteran on this team. Christian Kirk has been a great addition. I mean, this offense just looks really, really well put together. And the defense is getting key takeaways, like that pick six against Dallas a few weeks ago as well to seal it in overtime. Multiple sacks in different games. I mean, again, this team is just making strides to fight for a playoff spot, and they got to where they needed to be. Win this game, you win your division, and you get a home playoff game. I think that is incredible to go from one of the worst teams in the league last year to a playoff team this year. Again, coaching is huge. Trevor Lawrence's development has been nothing short of incredible. And that Jacksonville defense, with how they've been drafting recently, has just looked very, very, very consistent. As much as I love Derrick Henry and how he plays the game, if they're going to just put the ball in his hands 30 to 35 times, I mean, if you're Jacksonville, you stack the box and you let Joshua Dobbs beat you every day, all day. That's the risk I'm taking. I am putting 8-9 people in the box. I need your quarterback to come out there and beat me because I'm not letting Derrick Henry go off for 2 or 250 yards. That takes away time of possession. That obviously gets him going. That gets the defense tired and winded, and that gives our offense less opportunities to go out there and put points on the board. So I got Jacksonville. I don't think it's going to be a blowout because at the end of the day, it is a divisional game. I think this is somewhere between 28 to 17, 28 to 21, something of that magnitude of 7 to 10 points. But I got Jacksonville winning the division for the first time since they won with Blake Bortles. If I'm not mistaken, that was 2017, Saxonville, right? Kyle?
I believe so.
So I got Jacksonville, man. Congrats to them.
Yeah, Kev, I agree with you on this one as well. When we look back at the first matchup between the Jags and the Titans, the Jags put up 36 points, and Trevor Lawrence had quite a day against Tennessee. If I remember correctly, I think Evan Ingram had monster type day. He had over like 150 yards receiving, had like 1 or 2 touchdowns in that game, and single handedly took apart that Titans secondary. I think this game will be a little bit different, obviously knowing with the circumstances of Derrick Henry coming back into the fold. Ryan Tannehill's not gonna get the start. He's out for the rest of the year. I believe he had an ankle injury a couple weeks back that's going to sideline him for this game. Um, the only shot I give the Titans to win this game is if they can run the ball effectively with Derrick Henry. But like you said, Kev, I think the Jags are going to stack the box and they're going to force Josh Dobbs to try to beat them. And I just don't see the Titans winning that game in that manner. Like you said, Kev, I think really when it comes to the turnaround that the Jags have had over the last year, it's really been phenomenal. And obviously Trevor Lawrence has made some pretty significant strides in his second year as an NFL quarterback. But I think really just I think finally figuring out the coaching situation, having Doug Peterson there to kind of guide him along in his NFL journey, I think that's done wonders for him. When you look at last year, the turmoil that they had to deal with at Urban Meyer as the head coach, and he didn't even last the entire year. They cut him before the end of the regular season. You could just tell. I think the stability in the coaching staff has led to an overall better product when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And recently, Kev, they've been playing pretty solid football. I believe they're on a 4-game win streak right now. In the last 2 games, granted, it was against the Jets and it was against the Texans. The Jags have only given up 6 points in both those games combined. So not only is their offense putting up points, it's their defense that has been putting up tremendous type of results week in and week out, and really throughout this 4-game win streak that they've been on. And I think as far as I see it, I think they will be able to win this game, end the year on a 5-game win streak, and make the playoffs. Which just a couple weeks ago, I mean, didn't really see that happening. I thought the Titans pretty much had this division in their control, but it's really just been injuries that have derailed the Titans over the last couple of weeks with Ryan Tannehill missing time. You've had Derrick Henry missing time. And just the offense, they just can't get it together no matter who they put in at the quarterback position, whether it was Malik Willis, whether it was Joshua Dobbs. It just hasn't led to an overall consistent offense. And I just don't think that the Titans are going to be able to score enough points unless the Titans make this a defensive game, which I don't see happening. I just don't see a pathway forward for the Titans to win this game. If the Titans were to win this game, I think it would be honestly a miracle for them based on the circumstances. They got to go to Jacksonville for this game. So Jacksonville, they're going to have home field in this occasion. And I think Jacksonville wins this game relatively handily. Kev, I have the margin of victory for the Jags similar to yours. I think the Jags are going to be able to put up probably somewhere around 25 to maybe 30 points at the high end. If I had to put a score on this one, I think the Jags win this one by the score of 27-17. I do think it will be a 2-possession win for Jacksonville. And I think it's simply just because the Titans, I think, are going to struggle to put up points. Having Joshua Dobbs back there, third-string quarterback, hasn't really shown the rhythm and the consistency that they need to have to put up probably 20 to 25 points. And I think with Jacksonville's defensive plan, they're basically going to stack that box 7 to 8 deep to slow down Derrick Henry. And I just don't see the Titans being able to beat that Jags secondary, which has been playing pretty solid of late. And I think Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, I think they're all going to have relatively solid games. And I think they're going to be able to put up points consistently in this game. So, like I said, I got the Jags winning this game by the score of 27-17. And they would be AFC South champs and have a place in the playoffs. And after that, we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But yeah, I got the Jags winning this one.
Going to be an interesting one. I mean, not saying that the teams are horrible. Again, the Jags have been playing well, but in terms of expectancy, not the game I expected to be as entertaining as it would, holding the magnitude of importance that it does. So kudos to both teams for at least getting to this point. But next game is going to be an interesting one as well.
Let me kick you this one because Kev, we get to talk about your boy
Joseph.
Joseph who? Joseph who?
Burrow.
Say no more.
My dog.
Obviously, we're going to go over this AFC North battle that's going to feature the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this game, just to kind of set the scene, both teams have already made the playoffs. The Ravens are a guaranteed wild card spot when it comes to the Bengals, they did clinch the AFC North. So this game really doesn't have any sort of consequence when it comes to the division. But when it comes to just the AFC rivalry or the AFC North rivalry that we see between these two teams, it's always going to be a good battle between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, when it comes to the Bengals, obviously they've been in a little bit of a different situation, knowing of the circumstances that they went through on Monday night when they played the Bills, and that game was cut short due to Damar Hamlin collapsing on the field. So it has been a while since we've seen the Bengals play a full 60-minute NFL game. Obviously, they have to adjust and get back on track going up against the Ravens in this one. And honestly, when it comes to this game in particular, this could be just a good tune-up game, try to get some momentum going into the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see these two teams really go at it, despite both teams already clinching a playoff spot in the AFC playoff picture. So, Kev, to get this one to you, we've got the Ravens going up against the Bengals this weekend. This game is going to be in Cincinnati. Who do you think is going to win this one, and why?
So, I mean, I don't want to go out and say that it's going to be a blatant Cincinnati favoritism, right? I'm not going to go say that it's 100% going to be the Bengals because the Ravens defense, since acquiring Roquan Smith, has been absolutely lights out. Now, they don't have the greatest record in that time because I believe in that period they've lost 2 games, 2 or 3 games actually, because I cannot remember when they actually acquired him. But just looking back at their last 6, the Broncos game, they won 10-9, 9 points. The next game against Pittsburgh, 16-14, they got to win 14 points. The next game, they lost 13-3, but the defense held Cleveland to 13 points. They go and beat the Falcons 2 weeks ago, 17-9, once again, single digits. And then last week, they lose to the Steelers in a nail biter, but again, 16 points. This Ravens defense has been absolutely incredible. And when you go and look at games prior to the games that I'm talking about, there have been multiple 20-point games, 30-point games that the defense was allowing. And Roquan Smith, for whatever reason, has just added a different dimension, a different kind of confidence, a different kind of dimension to the defense, and it's just kind of sparked them to hold it down since they've had multiple backup quarterbacks have to come in. Because if I'm not mistaken, Tyler Huntley got hurt one game and someone else had to come in, and they were on their third string quarterback. Now, granted, Huntley has been playing with an injury as well, so I think that is going to be a bigger reason why I think Cincinnati will win. It's not going to be a blowout. I do have Cincinnati because I do believe that obviously Joe Burrow is 10 times better than anybody on this roster. I mean, the only one that would rival him would be Lamar Jackson, and that's just straight athleticism. But quarterback to quarterback, blow for blow, I'm going with Joe Burrow, even if Lamar was here. So I got Lamar. Wow. I have Joe, and I have the Bengals, and I think that this is going to be an entertaining game because, of course, it's a divisional game. It's a rematch from the game that was earlier in the year. Obviously, we don't have the Lamar versus Joe Burrow showdown, but for whatever reason, Joe always finds a way to dial it up against this team, man. Joe, he may start slow, but he finishes strong. The dynamic trio, the three-headed monster that is T. Higgins, Boyd, and Chase, they just seem to be unguardable in certain cases. And, of course, Hayden Hurst is there. Joe Mixon is there. With Lyle Collins tearing his ACL a few weeks ago and us not being able to see how this offensive line is going to adapt since last week's game or earlier this week on the Monday night game got canceled. I think that is going to be a big point of emphasis to watch because that's Joe's blind side. And that is pivotal for the success of this team because we've talked about it 100 times. If Joe is upright, the Bengals can beat most teams. If he's on his back consistently, they're not going to have any time. And I think Baltimore would take advantage of that. So I think this one will be a close game for the sheer factors that I had mentioned with Baltimore's defense playing better, Joe missing a left tackle, and then, of course, the week being a little awkward for Cincinnati with everything that's transpired with the whole Damar Hamlin situation. So I have this game going really tight. I think this might be a 24-21 game victory. I think that Cincinnati wins a nail-biter, and hopefully this would solidify them a home game.
Yeah, Kev, I'm with you on this one as well. I have the Bengals winning this one. I do think this is going to be a competitive game, and it's like you outlined. This Baltimore defense has been no joke. I know that the Ravens have gone through some pretty major issues on the offensive side of the ball, and it has to do with just not having Lamar in the fold. But I really do think that this defense has stepped up to the occasion and they're keeping these games competitive. And look, I mean, the Ravens are coming off a really tough loss against the Steelers last week. It was a game that they had in their control until Kenny Pickett threw the game-winning touchdown to Najee Harris, and I imagine that they're trying to get back into some sort of rhythm as they transition into the playoffs. But I think when it comes to the Bengals, I think the Bengals just have too much firepower for the Ravens to handle. And I think when it comes to the Ravens offense, I just don't see them putting up enough points against the Bengals to go toe to toe with them. So I do have the Bengals winning this one. Now, when it comes to the Bengals, like I kind of said a couple minutes ago in the lead up, we only saw a portion of them play against the Bills on that Monday night game a couple days ago. And I will say, even though that they didn't play the full 60 minutes in that game, like Kev said, based on the Damar Hamlin situation that took place, the Bengals looked like they had it rolling. And granted, they only played about, I don't even think they played a full 10 minutes of the first quarter. But seeing the type of success that they had against that Bills defense early on, granted, it didn't continue because they only played for, like I said, about 10 minutes in the first quarter. It really went to go to show that I think the Bengals would have been able to maintain that type of consistency where they would have really given the Bills a legitimate run for their money. And with the Bills having the defense that they have, I think the Bengals could have potentially put up 25, maybe even around 30 points had they played the entirety of the game in that scenario. But, you know, it's a different situation right now, and the Bengals have to get back into some sort of rhythm. And going up against the Ravens, I do believe that, the Ravens give them a specific challenge simply just because this is a divisional rival that they have to go up against twice a year. But I think the Bengals are going to be able to readjust based off of what happened this past week on that Monday night game. And I think that they'll be able to essentially continue the type of role that they've been on for the last 2 months. The Bengals have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Joe Burrow has been playing lights out in the second half of the year. And it's really been just based on the offense just making the plays that need to be made consistently game in and game out. And then the defense coming up with some crucial stops or some crucial sacks and even forcing a turnover or two. And I think just based off of the inadequate play from the Ravens offense the last couple of weeks, I think the Bengals will win this one relatively handily. I just think that this Bengals defense, when they're playing up to snuff, this defense is no joke. And I think going up against the Ravens offense, which, Kev, let me just outline some of the Ravens point totals from the last couple of weeks. They scored 13 points against the Steelers. They scored 17 points against the Falcons. They scored 3 points against the Browns. 16 against the Steelers in the first matchup between Pittsburgh. And then they scored 10 against the Broncos. So in no game from the first week of December up until now have the Ravens scored more than 20 points. Obviously, I know the Ravens have injury issues. I'm fully aware of that. But I don't believe that they'll be able to continue the defensive performances that they've been having the last month or so against the Bengals. I just think the Bengals have too much to work with. And I think when this game is final, I think the Bengals win this one by, I'd say probably around like 24-10. I just don't think the Ravens are going to score enough points to stay competitive in this game. And the Bengals may get a turnover or two, meaning that the Ravens defense gets a turnover or two from Joe Burrow, just because Joe has a tendency to turn the ball over here and there. I just don't think it's going to be enough, and I don't think that the Ravens are going to force those Bengals turnovers into points. So as far as I see it, I think the Bengals win this one relatively comfortably, and who knows? I think the Bengals could be set up for a pretty nice playoff run, very similar to last year, except this year they have really just finished out the season extremely well, despite getting off to a really rocky start at the beginning of the year. But when it comes to this game between the Bengals and the Ravens, I got the Bengals all day in this one.
I mean, I'm just looking forward to watching Joe do Joe things.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I've stated it multiple times on the podcast, and to Kyle personally, I think Joe Burrow has truly become my favorite player to watch for whatever reason. Swagger, confidence, his ability on the field. I mean, it's just crazy. But I would like to see them kind of get back into a rhythm to put them into a confident situation moving into the postseason. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of staying
Hold on,
in the. Oh, what you got?
do you want me to go over the scenarios uh, that's going to take place in the AFC, depending on the championship. I know I brought it up
Yeah,
earlier.
that would be good because at this point we already discussed what the situation would be for Pittsburgh to get in. So yeah, just to clarify.
Yeah, so this is how the NFL is going to handle the whole canceling the Bills and Bengals game from Monday night. So I'm just going to read it verbatim here. All right, so they say canceling the game between the Bills and Bengals creates potential competitive inequities in certain playoff scenarios. In an effort to mitigate those inequities, NFL clubs will consider tomorrow in a special league meeting, which will be tomorrow, which will be Friday. So when this gets uploaded, they might already have a decision by then. Um, a resolution recommended by the commissioner and approved by the competition committee. Blah 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 blah. And it consists of two elements. The AFC Championship game will be played at a neutral site if the participating teams played an unequal number of games and both could have been the number one seed and hosted the game had all AFC clubs played a full 17 game regular season. So they're talking about the Chiefs and the Bills there, and even the Bengals to a certain extent, um, just based off of the fact that neither the Bills or the Bengals are going to play a full 17 games. They're just keeping it in context with those teams that could have played a potential 17 games and could have potentially been a number one seed. Uh, those circumstances involve Buffalo or Cincinnati qualifying for the game as a road team and are listed as below. So this is the first scenario that they have. Buffalo and Kansas City both win. I'm assuming this is in regards to Week 18 this weekend.
Yeah.
Both win or both tie. A Buffalo versus Kansas City championship game would be at a neutral site. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario, and this is just the different ones that they outline. Buffalo and Kansas City both lose in Week 18, and Baltimore wins or ties. A Buffalo versus Kansas City championship game would be at a neutral site as well. Buffalo and Kansas City both lose, and Cincinnati wins. A Buffalo or Cincinnati versus Kansas City championship game would be at a neutral site. So if it comes down to a situation, so what they focused on with that one is if Buffalo and Kansas City both lose in Week 18, but Cincinnati wins, a Buffalo or Cincinnati versus Kansas City championship game would be at a neutral site as well. So it
So
would kind of
basically, it's a neutral site no matter what.
it,
That's what it sounds
it
like.
if it comes down to the Chiefs playing either the Bengals or the Bills. That's pretty much how I see it. And to
That
me,
neutral site better be indoors.
I mean, it could be.
I
It,
mean,
it
I'm saying if you have an opportunity to make it neutral, I think it should be indoors. I
so
think it should eliminate the elements so that narrows it down to a number of stadiums, obviously. So I'm just thinking out loud. You have SoFi, you have Atlanta. I'm just thinking of, like newer stadiums. You have Minnesota.
I think they may pick a stadium where it's like relatively, I guess, equal distant to where both cities are. So I mean, if it's Kansas City and Cincinnati, I mean
Indy,
Cincinnati's maybe Indy. I think Indy might be a good one. It is an indoor
indoors.
stadium. Kansas City, you wouldn't have to fly that far to Indy. Cincinnati is relatively close to Indianapolis. So, maybe that's a neutral site. It wouldn't
They
be the
can they
worst
can
one
go
in the
to
world.
Atlanta. They can go to New Orleans.
Yeah, I think it honestly really just depends on the stadiums that are available. That's
Right.
if, there's something going on at those respective
Oh,
stadiums.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just because
Because
they're the playoff team, just because they're not in the playoffs doesn't mean that they didn't rent it out for an event or something.
now here's the second part of what they listed with this whole adjustment based on the Bills and Bengals game getting canceled. So if Baltimore defeats Cincinnati in Week 18, this kind of goes to the whole coin flip thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
Um, if Baltimore defeats Cincinnati in Week 18, it will have defeated Cincinnati, a divisional opponent, twice, but will not be able to host a playoff game because Cincinnati will have a higher winning percentage for a 16 game schedule than Baltimore will have for a 17 game schedule. If Baltimore defeats Cincinnati, and if those two clubs are scheduled to play a wild card game against one another, the site for that game would be determined by a coin toss. If Cincinnati wins the Week 18 game, or if Baltimore and Cincinnati are not scheduled to play one another in the wild card round, the game sites would be determined by the regular season or the regular scheduling procedures. So essentially, what that means is if Baltimore wins and there's no like significant change in the standings for the AFC playoff race, so like let's say um, Cincinnati stays as the 3 seed, and I don't even think anything would change because I think Cincinnati already has a 3 seed. They wouldn't drop down to the 4. But but
Can't drop to the 4. Jacksonville has like 3 less wins in them. So they would lock at a 3 essentially.
then who's the first wild card team for the AFC? Who's the 5?
Oh shit. Why am I forgetting?
Because I know Baltimore's the 6. That's the reason why they keep talking about if they were to play against each other, because Cincinnati's the 3 and Baltimore's the 6. I can actually pull it up right here if you want me to. I can pull up the
Yeah,
poll.
no, I was trying to go off of memory because the AFC East is none of them. Unless Baltimore
The
clinched the
Chargers.
5? It's
Chargers.
the Charger.
It's the Chargers. The Chargers are the 5th seed. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where this thing gets very interesting, because Baltimore and the Chargers have the same record. So they're both at 10-6. Um, the Chargers play the Broncos in Week 18, and obviously, like we already talked about, the Ravens play the Bengals. So it is going to be interesting to see how this plays out, though, because I think if Cincinnati's smart, they beat Baltimore and just kind of avoid that whole scenario where you don't have to go into a whole coin flip situation uh, for a potential neutral site if they were to go up against the Ravens. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, it'll just be interesting to see how this whole scenario plays out. But I think it makes, I think based on the circumstances, it makes sense. To be quite honest with you, Kev, this is just me. I wish they would have played the the Bills and the Bengals game. I understand the circumstances. You know, the timing may have been weird based off of the Damar Hamlin situation. It's just that's one of the biggest games of the year, and I understand the circumstances surrounding that were substantial based off of Damar. I get that, but even even with the constrained schedule that we have right now, maybe they could have fit it in. But I think at this point in the season, I think they probably just thought it's like, you know what, we're getting pushed up by the playoffs here, and that would just be too many jumps to go through at this point. But for me personally, just speaking as a football fan, it let me put the Damar thing to just aside for a minute. That is obviously the priority. Like, I mean, I fully get that. I'm just speaking as a football fan here. I mean, watching the Bills and the Bengals go at it, that is top flight football there. And it's just it's unfortunate that we won't see that get played out, but I understand it. Like, it makes sense. It's just based off the Damar situation. But that was the one thing that even my dad and I were kind of talking about that over the last couple of days or so, whether or not they'd be able to get this game in. I thought they were actually going to try to make it work, but I think with the playoffs being so close, I don't think they're going to risk it. I think they would rather work out this whole neutral site for the AFC Championship game and just call it a day. So if that's a solution that they want to go with, fine. You know, it is what it is. I understand it based on the Damar situation, but you know, that's basically what they have as the alternative, just based on the
Gotcha.
situation at hand. But I wanted to go over that just so that it
Yeah, no,
provides
no, it makes sense.
it makes sense based off of where things are right now. But yeah. With that said, we will keep things within house in the AFC North. Kev, you want me to kick this one to you or?
I was gonna swing this one your way, just
Okay,
because I took one of the last two.
yeah, go right ahead.
Um, so with this game, the Steelers have found a way to claw themselves back into it, despite having some quarterback issues to start the season, and in the latter half of the last few weeks, with Kenny Pickett getting his second concussion, coming back and then making strides to put Pittsburgh in a position to not only get to the playoffs, but keep Mike Tomlin's streak of no losing seasons in his tenure as the head coach of the Steelers. And I mean, with this game with the Browns coming up, there's a lot of pressure on Pittsburgh to win. The Browns have been playing solid football over the last couple of weeks. Nothing to brag about, but I mean 7-9, that's not the worst thing in the world considering Deshaun Watson was out for the first 10, 11 games. So this is going to be an AFC North showdown. Who do you have coming out of this and why?
I'm gonna go with the Steelers on this one. I like the way that they've been playing over the last couple of weeks. Really, the biggest thing for me, like the biggest takeaway from the Steelers, has been their defense. Their defense has been extremely solid. They've been forcing turnovers, and not only that, the offense has been capitalizing on those turnovers in specific instances. It's not like they're going out and scoring 30 plus points on the offensive side of the ball, but when the defense makes some plays, it gives the ball back to the offense. And, Kenny Pickett, despite the fact that he's been hit or miss this year when he's been playing in that starting quarterback role, he's made some plays that have really kept Pittsburgh alive. And you could look back to this past week when the Steelers went up against the Ravens. Kenny Pickett made an absolutely Patrick Mahomes type throw, running to his left and basically throwing against his body and hitting Najee Harris in the end zone for the game-winning touchdown with basically only a minute left in the fourth quarter against the Ravens. And in that game, that was a purely defensive battle. Both teams really struggled to move the ball up and down the field effectively on the offensive side of the ball. But Kenny Pickett stepped up and made a big-time play that kept the Steelers alive in this playoff chase. Now, when it comes to the Steelers, the Steelers, they're going up against a team in the Cleveland Browns that are already eliminated from the playoffs. So when it comes to Cleveland could just play spoiler. And, I mean, they technically could. I don't put it past them. When it comes to Deshaun Watson and what I've seen from him in his first couple starts with the Browns, he's shaky. There's no other way to put it. When you've missed a significant amount of time, as he has in football, it's definitely left an imprint on his overall play. But, if you look back to last week, he had 3 touchdowns. He didn't have any interceptions. He only passed the ball 18 times, completed 50% of his passes, and they've been heavily relying on Nick Chubb to carry the offense forward. And with them scoring 24 points last week, it does look like Cleveland's may be getting on track offensively going into the offseason. And, we'll kind of see where it goes from there with Cleveland going into next year, since there's no playoff run in their future this year for them. But when it comes to the Steelers are still alive. If the Steelers win this game, obviously they would have to get some help. They would need the Dolphins to lose, and they would need the Patriots to lose to keep their playoff hopes alive. And you never know. The Patriots are going up against the Bills. If I look up real quickly to see who the Dolphins are going up against, I believe
Jets.
The Dolphins are going up against the Jets. And
Yeah,
they
it's
have
divisional weekend.
And the Dolphins have their own quarterback issues at that spot right now, because I don't think Tua's playing in that game. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater's playing in that game. So they may have to fall back to a third
signed
string.
Mike Glennon to their practice squad.
That really kind of goes to show, how desperate things are for Miami at this point. So there's a chance that the Steelers could find a pathway forward into the playoffs, which just a couple of weeks ago kind of seemed crazy to believe. But, here we are. We're in week 18. They're sitting at a 500 record. And I think they have a very good chance to go up against the Browns this weekend and get a win and just kind of play it from there. I think, their main focus here is limit Nick Chubb, get Deshaun Watson into some situations where he might throw an errant pass or two, and allow that Pittsburgh defense to step up to make some plays to potentially turn the ball over, get it back to Kenny Pickett, see what you could do with Najee Harris, George Pickens, and Deontay Johnson. You could throw Pat Freiermuth there as well. He's been pretty solid this year. And I think overall, it may not be a very high-scoring game. This is a game that I may see the Steelers maybe scoring 17 to 23 points. I don't think this is going to be an offensive explosion type of game from either team. But I think this is going to be a gritty AFC North type battle that we see between the Steelers and the Browns. And I think the Steelers come out on top and keep their playoff hopes alive. And we'll just kind of see how Sunday plays out. But I got the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, no, I got Pittsburgh too. I think Pickett, along with Pickens and Harris, have been playing exceptionally well over the course of the last few weeks. I think in their last 6 games, they won 5 out of 6. So Pittsburgh has legitimately just found a way to get it done. And when you look at who they've played as well, it's not like they're out here and they're. Then again, never mind. They haven't been playing the greatest competition. They lost to Cincinnati. They beat the Colts. They beat the Falcons. They lose to the Ravens. They beat the Panthers. They beat the Raiders. They beat the Ravens, which was the most important game of the week, or should I say the year for them at this point in time. So, yeah, their schedule was a little bit more favorable. I think their hardest opponents was obviously Baltimore twice in a month span, but they got it done, and that's what's important. Rookie quarterback getting it done with a rookie receiver. Defense is finally finding ways to turn it around, especially with T.J. Watt coming off of the injury a couple months back. So I got Pittsburgh. I think they have a lot on the line here. I mean, Kenny is just Kenny's actually changing the narrative. I like Kenny for whatever reason. I think people slept on him and really gave him a lot of shit for it when he didn't win the starting job initially when Trubisky was chosen, and then they threw him in, and I think his first game he threw 3 interceptions, which was just like, damn, is he going to be a bust? And I mean, like, that's usually a quick assumption, but I mean, when you have a bad game like that to start your NFL career, it's not exactly good narratives that are going to follow afterwards. So what I'm saying here is I got Pittsburgh winning, and I think that they sneak into the playoffs because of all the circumstances they need to happen. I mean, New England is going to lose to Buffalo, right? Buffalo's got every reason to win. They're going after the home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and New England just they can't keep up with Buffalo offensively. And then, like Kyle alluded, Miami's on not even their third string. This is their fourth string quarterback because Mike Glennon was signed to the practice squad earlier this week. And if he starts this game, the Jets have every reason to play spoiler because it's a divisional opponent. You don't want to go out the way you did. Um, and you smell blood in the water because you know that you have an opportunity to beat a team that is trying to get into the playoffs. Everybody knows if Miami wins, they get in. If New England loses, so this is a must-win game. If I'm a New York Jet, I'm putting in all my chips. If I'm that defense, I'm going to absolutely go after everybody. I'm annihilating whoever's in front of me, and I think that just is a successful formula for Pittsburgh to get in. Now, I wonder what the scenario is. I wonder what the scenario is if all three of them lose. Does that mean that the Dolphins get in by default? Or because the Dolphins are on a 6 game skid, does that mean, like, I don't know.
If all of them lose,
Yeah.
you're talking about the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Steelers lose. The Patriots get in. Yep,
Really?
the Patriots get in. As
Damn,
of
you're
right
hoping
now,
for everybody to catch the L.
and it could happen. There's a chance that it actually
Cleveland's no
could.
joke, bro. Cleveland's not a joke.
Yeah,
They are consistent at least.
yeah. I mean, obviously they're going to rely on Nick Chubb, and it just really kind of depends on if they really want to play spoiler or not. I mean, when it comes to the Dolphins have every reason to play because they're trying to fight for that last wild card spot. Um, because of the Patriots, it's the same thing. I don't think the Patriots are going to win. I just think Buffalo's just on too much of an emotional high right now. I don't think anybody would beat Buffalo in Week 18. Nobody. Um, I think the Steelers have a very good. I think the Steelers have a shot. I think they have probably one of the best shots. It just depends on whether or not the Jets want to show up. And the Jets have been hit and miss. And I mean, if they were to beat the Dolphins, I think that would just be hysterical because they're already eliminated. They don't really have anything to play for outside of the spoilers. So it's basically the same thing with the Jets and the Browns. They're both in that spoiler spot. It would just be absolutely wild to see both. Not only the Patriots lose, the Dolphins lose, but the Steelers as well. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily mind it as a Patriot fan. I just don't think that is actually going to happen where all three teams lose. I think the
Right.
Steelers are probably going to
Right.
beat the Browns. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins beat the Jets. So the Patriots have the worst matchup out of all of them. That's just obvious.
That's just the
But
reality of it, yeah.
overall, going to be very interesting to see how that whole AFC wildcard uh, situation plays out because that number 7 seed is going to be pretty competitive this weekend, seeing how things play out.
We love to
But
see.
yes, sir. But really, this is the final game that we're going to go over. It's going to probably be the biggest game of the weekend. It is going to be an AFC North battle that is going to feature the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Now, when it comes to both of these teams, the Lions have been on a little bit of a skid. The Lions looked like a pretty solid team a couple weeks ago, but they've been slipping. And when you know it, you got the Green Bay Packers who are sitting at an 8-8 record. I believe they won 4 straight games. It looks like Green Bay has finally kind of turned a corner, and they have a very good chance to potentially get that last wild card spot in the NFC playoff picture. This game is in Green Bay, so this is going to be in favor of Green Bay being at home. And seeing Aaron Rodgers going up against Jared Goff, this has the potential to be a pretty solid offensive showdown. Knowing how good the Detroit Lions offense has been with Jared Goff at the helm at multiple times throughout this year. But this is what it all comes down to. It's for all the marbles for the NFC North, and whoever wins this game, they would get the 3 seed, if I'm correct, because the Bucks have the 4 seed.
Who will get the 3 seed?
Well, somebody has to win the division.
Minnesota won the division.
Oh,
You
wow,
scared the crap out of me.
wow,
I was like,
wow.
huh?
I dropped the ball on that one. Jesus Christ.
It's okay. It's all good.
I forgot. I totally forgot about the Vikings. Well, the Vikings Vikings better be careful. I know we're not even talking about them this week, but
They
their
got their
team
own
is,
problems.
yeah. But nonetheless, let me get back on track. So it's a wild card matchup. Obviously, you got Detroit, Green Bay trying to get the last spot in the NFC playoff picture. So, Kev, to get this one to you, we've got the Lions and the Packers going at it for potentially the last wild card spot in the NFC. It's a huge game in Lambeau Field. Who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
I want Detroit. I've been on this Detroit bandwagon all season. I love Jared Goff over there. I love the way that this defense has found a way. You see what I mean? I'm making my own mistakes. Has found a way to make plays when it matters the most. I love this kid Hutchinson. I really think that he is just not a game changer, but has the potential to be one of the better defensive linemen in the game as his career progresses. And my favorite man, Dan Campbell, might be my favorite head coach in the league. I mean, players coach, aggressive. Everybody loves him in the locker room. I mean, I want them to make it to the playoffs for the sheer fact of that guy's job was in jeopardy 4 weeks into the year. And he has completely turned around the narrative, turned around the culture. And I mean, like Kyle has mentioned this before about multiple teams. You want a coach that the players will run through a brick wall to make him happy and to get it done for him. And that's exactly what Detroit is. However, however, that Packers secondary, that Packers defense has been absolutely lights out. I mean, they shut down the best receiver in the league last week in Justin Jefferson, which screwed me out of my sorry, screwed me out of my championship final. Man, I still can't believe that happened. But Aaron Rodgers has also been playing effective. Christian Watson has been playing really good. Aaron Jones, I was almost going to say Corey Dillon, AJ Dillon. The Packers have just been rolling, and I'm not saying that the Lions haven't, but the Lions beat them a few months back, 15-9. Aaron Rodgers had a lot of turnovers, and I think that A-Rod's going to remember that. I really think that that's going to be in the back of his mind, that he's going to be like, "Wow, these guys beat us, and we were our worst enemy last time." And I think that's going to have him more prepared. And with the defense being on the same page, the offense has been rolling. I think that Green Bay is going to squeak away with a close one. Now, if Detroit were to upset them, I wouldn't be surprised because once again, I think that they have a great all-around team and a great locker room together. But with that falter against the Panthers a few weeks back, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be on that right mentality. Green Bay is a completely different team. I mean, if you look at their last 2 games have been against the Panthers and they blew out the Bears. It wasn't exactly something impressive. They beat the Bears. So hopefully this will be a game to remember. I think that, again, like I said, I think it's going to be a close one. I got the Packers actually winning this one 27-24. And again, it's gonna come down to the wire just because that Green Bay defense is stifling, but Jared Goff and that offense are no bums. DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, Jameson Williams. Obviously, you have Amon St. Brown and so many other players that have been playing exponential. So I hope that this game lives up to the hype, lives up to the expectation. But I got Green Bay winning in a close one to solidify their spot as a 7th seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think with this one, Kev, I'm inclined to agree with you on this one. Um, Usually when it comes to games that could decide a wild card spot or just an overall playoff spot, you have these two teams that are going at it, and I typically go with the home team in this one just because I think that home team will I think their fans will energize the team. It'll just get them in the right mindset to go out there and play a solid game. And I think when it comes to the Packers, with the way that they've been playing the last month, I have more faith in them than the Lions. The Lions, to be fair, they're a solid team. I don't want to overlook them entirely in this game, even though that I am picking the Packers. It's just I think the Lions really screwed the pooch against Carolina a couple weeks ago. Granted, I mean they got it back against the Bears last week, but the Bears are scrubs, so that wasn't really that impressive to me. But the Packers beating the Vikings in the manner that they did, Kev, they scored 41 unanswered points in that game. It was utterly unbelievable what the Packers were able to do against a better opponent, nonetheless. And I think in this game, I don't think they're going to score 41 points like they did last week against the Vikings. I
No.
think this will be a much more competitive game. And I do believe that Detroit's going to give them a closer game. But I got the Packers winning this one. When it comes down to the Packers are just they're just a more consistent team right now. They're on a 4-game win streak. The Lions have been up and down the last couple weeks. And I have to say, with what the Packers offense has been able to establish, not only in the passing game, but in the run game as well, it seems to be working. I mean, this isn't like Aaron Rodgers going out there and throwing 300, 350 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, like vintage Aaron Rodgers. It's not really that. This is a well-balanced offense right now with what Aaron Rodgers does in the passing game. And then when you have basically, a lightning and thunder combination or thunder and lightning combo with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, I mean, that's tough for any team to stop defensively just because, when you look at that package that they have, especially with it being colder out now, once that run game gets going, usually once you start getting into those third and fourth quarters, defense just get worn down by that run game. And the Packers, they have not been letting off the pedal when it comes to their run game. I think, if they're able to run the ball effectively against the Lions, I think it could be a long day for that Lions defensive unit. And, the Packers don't need to go out there and score 25, 30 points in this game. If they could chew up the time of possession in this game and, get that time of possession probably 35, 36 minutes in their favor, just based off of the long, sustained drives that they can get with that offensive combination with Aaron Rodgers and then the run game, I just don't think the Lions are going to have a lot of opportunities to get points on the board. And with the way that Packers defense has been playing of late, I think the Packers could definitely slow down that Lions offense to the point where the Lions may only score, I'm going to say probably somewhere around 15 to 20 points. Jared Goff has been solid for that quarterback spot with the Lions this year, but going up against the Packers, going up against one of the legends in Aaron Rodgers, I just have to favor Aaron Rodgers in this one simply just because he's just been more consistent, and that's despite the fact that the Packers just about a month and a half ago looked completely dead in the water. Kev, I think we even outright said that we didn't think the Packers were going to make the playoffs, and here we are in Week 18, and they have a legitimate shot to make it in if they win this game against the Lions, and I do believe that that will be the case. I think it's just going to be too much of A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, and then Aaron Rodgers stepping in times to make some plays, to get some third down conversions. I really am focusing on the Packers of getting these long sustained drives that are going to put points on the board. And I just don't believe the Lions are going to be able to counteract that offensively enough to get this win on the road against the Packers. So as far as I see this one playing out, I got the Packers winning this one by the score of, let's say, 24-17. I do think it will be a one-possession game when it's all said and done. But I think the Packers get this win at home at Lambeau and advance to the playoffs as the last seed in the NFC.
I'm happy this game got flexed. Like I said, I've really been just cheering super hard for the Lions, and then seeing the Packers turn it around just makes this a charismatic clash for like the perfect game for like a yeah.
Cataclysmic. I think that's
Yeah, that one. That one, no. You see what I'm saying? It's almost 1 a.m. My brain is fried. I try to use a big word. It doesn't really work for me all the time. It doesn't even work when I'm awake. So
I think that was the word you were going for.
I definitely probably was. I could have just invented a word in my head for all I know, but it doesn't really make a difference. This NFC North showdown is like the perfect way to end the regular season, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just like both teams got to win to get in. Obviously, Detroit needs some help, but it's going to be an amazing game. It's like a redemption game for Aaron Rodgers. I got to end the season paying back this team for embarrassing me the way that they did earlier on. And if we win, we shake the narrative that I'm washed. We get into the playoffs. Boom, 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 boom.
Do you remember that first playoff? That first matchup that the Packers had against the Lions? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Aaron had 3 turnovers or 3 picks. 2 of them were in the red zone or something like that.
Yeah, the Lions won that game by the score of
15 to 9.
Yeah, it's like a baseball score.
That's what I'm saying. It's just it was a weird one, but I guarantee you, with him being as petty as he is, he got that right here, and he knows. Oh, I'm home now too. I ain't forget.
I think he knows that he left too many plays out in the field the first time around. He
Left
knows
too many
that.
points on the board.
Yeah. So I think he'll get his mind right on this one. And honestly, it doesn't even need to be all Aaron Rodgers. I think with the run game that they have back there, man, those guys can run for
That
150
two-headed
yards,
monster,
200.
they're nasty.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, I mean, it's January. Like, it's going to be
It's
cold out.
cold.
Like, they're going to focus on running the football. I wouldn't be surprised if those guys try to get somewhere in between 150 to 175 yards combined between the two of them in A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. I mean, those guys,
Right.
as long as they're given the run lanes, those guys can have those type of performances. So, and when you tie in what the defense has been doing, I think that defense is on a high, especially Jair Alexander with the way that he locked down Justin Jefferson last week. So, I just think overall, I think the Packers are just in a better headspace than the Lions are, and I think the momentum's truly at their backs. So, I really think the wind's in their sails, and I think it will carry them to the playoffs. It's that simple. Kevin, did this it, my guy?
Yeah, man. I think that's a wrap. It's a little on the late side.
Yeah. Yep.
Oof.
But Kev, the next time we record, it's unfortunate to say, but the NFL regular season will have come to an end. I understand the playoffs will start, but it's another NFL season.
It's always
It's another
bittersweet, man.
it's another NFL regular season in the books. So, um, I imagine after this week's games are done, we'll probably start getting into obviously regular season honors and mentions. Obviously, when it comes to some of the awards that they start passing out, um, I imagine we'll save that for next week. So I guess it's a little sneak preview for next week. But yeah, just another regular season in the books, my guy. So obviously, we'll do a recap after this weekend. But damn, came and went, another one.
As always.
But it sets us up for a good playoff run, my guy.
Oh yeah. Always can't wait. I mean,
So
the setup is going to be glorious.
so, uh, Kev, I got nothing more to add here. We've not done everything on the agenda. Um, the floor is yours. The close one out, my guy, if you want to.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for the support on all platforms. We just hit 400 on Instagram. YouTube continues to climb. Twitter's growing. TikTok's growing. So just grateful for any and all support, no matter where it comes from. So without further ado, you guys have an incredible weekend, and we'll be seeing you guys again after the slate of Sunday night games are over, or should I say the slate of Sunday games are over. And we can't wait to talk about the playoffs.
Yes, sir. With that said, you guys, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.